3, 2, 1,
We are go for
0.
liftoff in T-minus 30.
Welcome to the Green Revolution Show, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alexander Graham Markelides, and I am your host. Now, what's the Green Revolution Show? Well, I'll make it simple. We are a show that are going to bring together thought leaders around the world and help each other thrive with nature. Thrive with nature. Now, how do we do that? How do we go from big, overwhelming climate change and global warming to your own backyard? We're going to learn how to do it together. We're going to help you just by tuning in to reduce toxins in your backyard, in your water, for your kids, for your family. Now, 50% of all proceeds and ad revenue is going directly towards planting trees in high-need areas. We have 500 already earmarked to plant in Los Angeles this year, and we'll be doing 1,000 this year. So stay tuned, have fun, check in, subscribe to stay alive. This is the Green Revolution Show, ladies and gentlemen. We have a group of experts and thought leaders with us here today. We're really grateful to have them. I don't even know where to begin, so I'm just going to start. We have the one, the only Jordan C. Hammond, who has diverted over 2.4 tons of e-waste from landfills.
Pushing 2.7 now.
2.7, so we're flirting with 3 tons of e-waste, electronic waste from landfills. Corporate social responsibility, very tantamount. We're talking about B Corporation. We're talking about caring about the triple bottom line in a financial corporate sense.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about being much more responsible with all the e-waste. At this point, we're looking at about 12% that's getting responsibly handled. This is something we can definitely make a lot of ground on. We can make a lot of progress on, because it's actually estimated hundreds of millions of dollars that is wasted within this within the way that we're handling e-waste right now, just in the precious metals.
Amazing.
So it actually becomes economically feasible for companies to reclaim that.
Well, let's reuse that particular neodymium magnet, or the plastics of those metals.
Absolutely, and there's many other aspects too. Is a functional laptop is still worth a lot on the secondary market, or to a school, or to a nonprofit. When it's done being useful for a startup or something. So.
Phenomenal. And so our second guest here, we have the one, the only Tobias Fox, amazing community organizer. When I taught in Newark, I had the great opportunity to work with him. And Tobias, thank you so much for coming this long way from the East Coast.
Thank you.
How many gardens do you have now?
Well, one, I advocate for the localization of food and energy production. And I do this by way of developing hands-on educational programs around urban agriculture, renewable energy, wellness and nutrition, ecological building, and eco-art. As a master gardener, I manage about 3 community gardens, and I work with about 1,000 volunteers a year doing this. Yeah.
And I mean, you are now working directly with the city of Newark. You've been cherry picked in a way to make their own actual inside farm and garden. You founded your own organization, Newark Science and Sustainability.
Right.
And he's very humble himself, but I think he should run for mayor of Newark. I'm not even joking. So I'll leave it at that. I'm really excited to have an amazing person that lives in Venice with me here, Finian Makepeace. The last name speaks it all, because he really does live up to it. Heavily involved in, soil healing. I don't even know where to start. Co-founder of Kiss the Ground. They have an amazing book that is out that will be a New York Times bestseller list. We're like 4 or 5 books away. I'm going to buy like 10 after this show. And coming out with a new documentary, executive directed by the man himself, Leonardo DiCaprio. So thank you for joining us, Finian.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome.
Love what you're doing with the community gardens
Thank
and
you.
you as well. So Kiss the Ground was really founded because myself and the other co-founder discovered something that has been largely left out of the climate change equation, and that's soil. Basically, that about 1/3 of the excess CO2 that's in the atmosphere is from the loss of soil. And the best news is that we can change how we farm. Instead of losing soil as we farm, we can actually do regenerative agriculture and build soil as we farm, get better, equal or better yields, better quality food.
Right.
We can help drought issues. All these things that come along with building healthy soil can happen, and that was too big of a story to not tell.
Right.
So immediately we said, there's the pioneering scientists and farmers who are doing science and farming. Not enough people are out here messaging this big idea. Kiss the Ground was founded to get this idea out to the world, to politicians, to companies, to consumers, and farmers alike.
It's phenomenal, and I think it's so like you said, it's like this, you don't know what you don't know. And I think a lot of us sort of forget. I mean, B.F. Skinner has this amazing quote. It goes, education is amazing. I'm paraphrasing here because it allows us to rediscover what we have once forgotten. Yeah. Right? There's a lot of ancient cultures that have this knowledge of living in balance truly with the earth. And it's not this hippie thing. It's not hug a tree. It's completely financially conservative to do this, right?
Yeah,
I mean, all the things
Absolutely.
we're doing. Like,
Absolutely.
case in point, Jordan. I mean, let's start there. I was going to ask you about who you are, and we already know that. Let's dive into it. We live in a capitalistic democracy, or democratic republic, right? With a free market, maybe, right? But we have talk.
We have to make it economically feasible.
It has to be, right?
And that's just the thing, is we actually have solutions to so many of our problems. And I think that's one of the things that I really love about this show, and all the stuff that you guys are doing is it's about being locally sustainable, about actually utilizing the resources that we are pulling out of the ground to the best way that we actually can. And the thing is we actually have the technology, the knowledge to reimagine how we are going about so many things within our system. Yeah. And I'm really happy to be working with Relab because we've created an economically feasible and method for companies to reclaim this value that's generally just wasted. Right. And on top of that as well, it's also doing the right thing. Right. The objectively right thing. I mean, this stuff is like a lot of times leaking into our water table. It's just getting thrown into the landfill. In some cases, it's just getting burned. Right? It's terrible.
This is
what's happening
exposing
with it.
mercury, cadmium. I mean, horrible metals that are poisoning our own people. The plants we have in the U.S., whether it's Alabama, New Jersey, or Florida, these are toxins.
Right, absolutely. And the thing is there is actually a lot of good news in this stuff that people don't actually know about. Apple and some of these other companies, but Apple especially has come out to say that they want to build all of their stuff from recycled metals, which is huge. And it's also too, from an economic perspective, making that recycling even more economically feasible because the metals are becoming worth more, and then the recycling process is also too generating more money. So. That's just one part of what we're doing.
It's
I just
amazing.
wanted to touch. I just
really
wanted to
proud
touch
of
on
it.
something.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Regarding the chemical stuff, where it's like, yes, our plants that are extracting things and heavy metals and all this stuff doing it, but some of the more on the insanity side of it, when we're looking at how insane we really are, what we're doing, what we're applying to our food, the fact that we have farmers out there wearing hazmat suits, spraying the food that our children eat. And you interview these farmers, and they say, we don't eat this food. We would never eat this food. Do you see what I put on this food? I would never. And they have their side guard. They try to do something else because they know.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
But so one of the challenges that I have growing food in the urban environment, using soil or mimicking outdoor agriculture as they do in the rural environment, is how healthy is the soil? Yeah. Because of industrialization. Exactly. Right. And I say back, well, how healthy is the soil in commercialized rural farms?
Right.
Yeah. So let's
kind of like that water question. Be like, how much better is the bottled water than the
right.
Well, the polyphenols are hold on, they're both.
So, but that's my point is that in terms of, which is huge, right? Looking at the soil. How do we create new soil? In Newark, where I live, the landscape 70% paved.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that is a huge environmental concern because it could be, the weatherman or the weather person could be broadcasting that it's 60 degrees outside, but it feels like 70 for us.
Urban heat island effect.
Island effect.
Urban heat island effect. And if flooding, right? Newark sewer system's older, but like just the fact that LA, Newark, any major city, we are like I said before, you're zoomed out from space. There's an infection.
Well, I want to jump. I want to let you finish, but this is something I've been getting much more heavily involved in. It's around small water cycles. Somehow we've lost this concept, and generally a lot of our water thinking comes from such a long time ago. When water was dangerous because it was full of stuff. You think of Paris 1422, like. Water was scary because it killed you when it was standing. So our background of where water comes from and getting it out, and our systems of getting water away from us. But in effect, give Houston for example, paved the entire city. Right. So when we have severe weather, we have infiltration rates of 0 almost in the city. And then you look out to the expanding farmland, and people think, oh, it's farmland. It'll absorb water. Right. But I have the science the people who've just told me like about a month ago, infiltration rates of half an inch. Think of how long do you think it would take a half an inch in some of those farms to infiltrate? Half an inch of water.
To get down.
Yeah. See if you can guess.
In your average industrial American farm.
On around that area of Houston.
Talking number of inches that it would take to fall.
I'm just going to tell you, an hour for half an inch to infiltrate.
To saturate down.
Now, healthy soil, you build that soil back in a year, 2, 3, you can be 8 seconds, half an inch infiltrate.
All right, and so I just have to recap that. So 8 seconds for a half an inch of water, ladies and gents, to percolate down, opposed to how long? An hour?
An hour.
An hour. And you know, one of the greenest schools that I've ever been at, the Willow School by Mark Biedron, he was appointed by Chris Christie to be some higher up in the educational world of Jersey. He created this school that is a living organism, the green building and the LEED certified and everything. And he, just like you know, opened my awareness there. I never knew that. He let me know that, you know, I thought a green field was good. Oh, at least we have the fields where they're playing soccer. Well, no, it's very similar. Something like a field that is mowed is something like almost as impenetrable as gravel. Like, you know, and we'll fact check all this, but we're giving you broad strokes here.
Well,
folks,
just to think about it really quick.
Yeah.
So you think about a multi-species field where you have lots of different species of plants. Some root systems are like this, some are spread out, some are going this far, some are going
fibrous roots
8 feet down.
Yeah, right.
But the point is you're having this multi-tier, and you have the exudates of those plants are being pumped into the ground, feed the organisms. They're creating aggregated soil, so particles that are aggregated. There's lots of air space and water space. When you have a single species of grass and the root systems, you tear it up, it's only that thick because it always equals the amount of photosynthetic capacity on top of the plant. Generally, it's a general mirror approximation. So when we have that, we have a situation where we have, you know, you have this much infiltration, then it just stops, and we're not restoring our underground water supplies, and all these issues that we have, and like, oh my God, climate change, everything's so much more severe, and you're like, well, the severity is due to the lack of the planet's ability to work, the soil's ability to operate.
And we have the solutions. I think that's one of the things that most people don't talk about enough, is we always talk about the doom and gloom. But we actually have the solutions. We have different ways to approach these problems and come out with better use of our resources, whether we see that benefit economically or in the health of our society, you know, or within the output of the crops, you know.
And this is one thing.
Speak more on that. I mean, I just went to Boston for the International Greenbuild Conference, and I met William McDonough, author of Cradle to Cradle, completely recyclable book, very similar to your line of work, where it's the book itself can be recycled in perpetuity, forever. The plastics all plastics degrade, but this one is specifically meant to be a technical nutrient, right? So can you speak to that and expand, you know, because you've done not just 2.7 tons of e-waste, you've done more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. E-waste is one portion of what we do, and you know, it's about thinking of these things differently, of really utilizing the resources that we have as intelligently as we can, right? And sort of like I was mentioning before, I mean, with technology that companies are, you know, ready to let go of because they're obsolete for their usage, a lot of other people can still use that technology beyond just the metals and everything that's in it. Of course, anyone that's been in an IT closet, you know, of most companies have just seen like a whole bunch of junk sitting around. They're like, this is crazy. We give companies an opportunity to be able to retire that gear and do it in a way that's efficient for them and actually economically feasible for them. But at the same time, too, is we're getting laptops to nonprofits, educational institutions, and we're also raising money for some of these companies that they then donate to nonprofits.
That's
and
wonderful.
So, yeah, like right now we're working with a number of different companies to work towards their environmental sustainability goals, including some of these companies that have signed on to the Paris Accord. And we're aiming to raise $1.5 million for different environmental organizations like the Sierra Club and Earth Justice and the CO2 Initiative that are all going at sustainability in different angles, right?
You're talking
and
about
this is all about trash to treasure.
There needs to be a massive re-education process because we have to take this interdisciplinary approach towards sustainability. Otherwise, we'll keep going down this same rabbit hole of you handle this department, I'll handle that department. And it's never an interconnectedness of how we can create solutions to these problems.
We call it the common ground.
The common ground.
Soil is the best common ground for farmers, better livelihoods, from any background, any political affiliation. We all have the soil, and I'm on my side of the political spectrum, but I've had the buddy high fiveness of the people who are on the completely other side, because we're talking about soil, we're talking about regeneration, we're talking about their bottom line, their money.
They're talking about their money and their kids. If we can reduce toxins, which we can, which you can in your backyard, you're going to care. You deserve fresh water. We deserve fresh water. Flint, case in point, right? I mean, you go to a nice neighborhood. You know what I always tell my kids? What do you see? Trees. You see green, right? Now, if that doesn't say something, right, I don't know what does. Speaking of trees, let's talk about drawdown. What is it, and you know, why is it so important? Maybe drawdown.
Yeah,
right.
The book, Paul Hawkins' book Drawdown, just came out recently. It's a phenomenal book. Really what it's doing is establishing a credible 100 different ways that human beings can start to look at the climate change equation differently, instead of just emissions reductions, saying, hey, we have to stop emitting to decrease carbon emissions and balance the climate.
Right.
We're talking about the drawdown side, taking carbon out of the atmosphere, putting it back and balancing the climate, taking us back to levels of under 350 parts per million.
Right.
This is necessary, otherwise we will spiral out of control climate-wise. We're already at over 400 parts per million. Look up the book Drawdown. It's basically talking about all the solutions, you know, everything from educating women to regenerative agriculture to our meat consumption and how it works. Yeah.
And you know, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so
Hyperlocal food. Yeah.
This brings some thoughts to my mind about some drawbacks to growing trees on a massive scale in an urban community or probably any given city, but definitely speaking from where I'm from, which is Newark, New Jersey, and and you can attest to this as well, is that there are certain neighborhoods where we couldn't plant trees because of power lines under the pavement, because of power lines in the air, in the sky.
Right.
We couldn't have trees.
Dangerous.
It's too dangerous. We couldn't have trees go beyond a certain height. So when we talk about planting trees, especially in urban environments or in cities, we have to start talking about the technology that also prevents that from happening as well, I believe. You know?
I completely, and you know what just made me think of, you know, Africa has skipped the wired, right?
It should be wireless.
Right, we should be. They have gone from the infrastructure of having, you know, the Tesla, Edison, you know, Westinghouse wires to cell phones and M-Pesa, right? Beautiful paying system. So I think you're absolutely right. And I think it comes down to, you know, citizen activism. And I think it comes down to voting and running for office. You know what I mean? I'm not joking. Run for mayor, Tobias. And to this point about drawdown and tree experts, we now just have to bring in the one, the only, the guru of trees, Mr. Andy Lipkis, the founder of Tree People. Come on in, Andy. Thank you so much for coming on in. Amazing. I think if there's anybody we need to speak to in life, it's people who have done it before, right? And so, Andy, you know, enlighten us. What do we need to know?
Well, you're doing great, and it's an honor to be here with you, and you're hitting home runs with this conversation. I'd like to take it right down to, as you've been saying, people's yards, people's backyards, their street, their neighborhood, their school, their park. Scaling, you know, technology people are pushing us to think about scale as if it doesn't have anything to do with us. But in Los Angeles, there's 4 million people in this city. There's 10 million people in the county. There's 24 million people in Southern California, greater Los Angeles. Every single one of us, to pick up on Finian's point, every single one of us is built as a regenerator. We are not built as consumers.
I love that.
But we have to take up that role. Guess what? Think of all that nature feeds us.
Right.
Not just the food, but passion, compassion, intelligence, caring, creativity, our voices. And they're all muted when we're just consumers. But when we begin to learn and see that we have so much power to take action right where we live. You want to plant thousands of trees.
Absolutely.
You know, we've planted millions.
Yes.
Other people have planted billions.
Right.
But the power of one person, one tree, you've got two superheroes that we don't appreciate as superheroes. But you've been talking about the superhero power of microbes.
Right.
You know, trees have been the host for all that soil, all that water in their roots. And we have to bring it home because it is so potent. And if you happen to plant a fruit tree, it's feeding your body, your family, your neighborhood.
Right, creating climate. I mean,
but we have to use wisdom. We have to use the new science that's really available and so potent. That short water cycle is about the fact that The water cycle, we know water evaporates out of the ocean, moves inland, and rains. When it hits a city, the water runs off, as you were describing, or even these farms that aren't storing the water, it's running off and flooding through the whole central part of the country.
Right.
Trees have always been the things that captured and recycled water, right? There's no new water on the planet. Every molecule of water that was here when the planet was born is still in circulation. There's nothing new.
Law of conservation of mass, kids, study it up.
But how does it recycle?
Yeah.
It goes when rain falls, it's caught, and we're taught the water cycle that somehow the water gets in the ground. No, it needs to hit compost and mulch. The primary producer of that is trees. So just for some numbers, if you take an oak tree, and there's oaks all across America, different kinds, but they're like the backbone, the pillar of the ecosystem. Even in Southern California, where some people think this is a desert and it only rains 10 to 15 inches a year, it's enough water for half our needs. But right now, we throw all that water away. As Finian was discussing earlier, we didn't understand the value of rain. But a tree, a large oak tree, that has a canopy of 100 feet in diameter, underneath that tree is this amazing sponge created by all the compost, all the critters that have been chewing on the leaves.
Yeah.
The liquid volume storage in that one tree is 120,000 gallons in a flash flood, right?
120,000
gallons in under one large oak tree.
120,000.
Right.
12,000.
Right.
120,000.
No, 120,000. That's just
in
in
a flash
space.
flood. Boom. Sucks it up.
That's just in a space 5 feet deep, 100 feet wide.
So that's like,
But-
we could, yeah.
Well, it's huge, but the real question is what happens when we take it out? So
Yeah.
what do we replace it with? Bureaucracy, disintegrated, different silos, a flood control agency, a water supply agency,
right.
a soil conservation service, and what the tree did integrated, and what we can do integrated thinking, whole thinking. The agencies don't. We have to actually have them do that. But they believe that they have built infrastructure to replace the trees, but also to replace humans that were the partners and the managers. We're at a stage right now. California's head of natural resources, which is trees, water, floods, energy, he declared 4 weeks ago that the infrastructure that we built and have now to supply our water, to protect us from floods, to protect us from heat, that's an infrastructure that was built for a climate that we no longer have. And the infrastructure that we have built today for trillions of dollars is no longer capable of protecting our families and our communities. You see it across America,
The floods,
day in and day out, and heat. The Centers for Disease Control announced not long ago that more Americans die every year of severe heat than all other natural disasters combined. Add into that also skin cancer, the largest, fastest growing rate in this country, and 14-year-olds are the most at-risk population. Why? Because we're frying them on schoolyards without shade.
Wow.
So that's why we go from planting trees at home to the neighborhood to the school to the
Can you,
park.
I think that's a point worth repeating. Can you please repeat those two? Not only 14-year-olds are the most at risk of getting skin, 14-year-olds?
Yes.
Right? Tell us about the benefits of trees and all the negative effects that when they get removed, what happens? I mean,
Well, it would take several shows to cover it all.
Well, we'd
but
love
in
to have you
terms
back.
of,
I mean,
you know, what's urgent for today?
Okay.
You know, we have grown to only think about trees as decorations for our cities, when really they are our superhero healing partners. And I say partner because they don't live without us anymore. But whether it's air quality, water supply, flood protection, most important now in many American cities and cities across the world, they're all getting hotter. Every single climate model and the last 20 years of history show how much hotter cities are.
Right.
And Americans are dying in heat, and it's projected to increase pretty radically. What was nature's air conditioner before the machine?
right.
The first air coolers we built, swamp coolers, were evaporative coolers, and that's what trees do. And Tree People is leading a major research collaboration with Yale School of Forestry, LA County Public Health, UCLA public health and disasters to actually create the prescription for our cities, and then other cities will be able to follow that, to how we need to increase our tree canopy cover in the city. So in Los Angeles has generally 20%, but in the underserved communities, the disadvantaged communities, that tree canopy cover drops to 6% or below. And you can map it, you can see it from the air, but you can actually take a map of chronic disease, morbid obesity, diabetes, lung disease, and death by
getting
those.
goosebumps.
And it matches exactly inversely to canopy cover. So back to your dream.
20% of your average LA city, which are not necessarily saying that's even healthy, is covered by tree cover, as opposed to the disadvantaged, underprivileged communities, which is a direct relate, I believe, of slavery, 200-year collateral, open scar. I just have to say that. But 6%, we're going from 6%, right? 6% coverage.
Yeah.
It's
and
insane.
so
Crime, unhealth. I mean, that's, talk about a correlation. Is causation?
And it's reversible, but we
Right.
have to be smart. So what trees do, it's not just shade. They actually need water in the soil, and they evaporate. And we can cool the city down 7 to 10 degrees, enough to save lives. Every one of you touched on different aspects of what is so critically needed. The whole issue of runoff and having soils that can absorb because they're loaded with life.
Right.
And in our neighborhoods, if you don't live in a house, if you live in a house, you should be thinking about retrofitting your yard, because we know that in the climate models and for California is we're actually going to be getting slightly more rain, not more deserts here, but in far fewer storms, right? So
Look at that.
you just saw it in Texas. You saw it in Louisiana. You saw it in Florida. These superstorms are becoming the norm. But so we have to adapt. But it took hundreds of years to build our current infrastructure. It will take at least 30, 40 years, but we have the power ourselves, with our families, with our neighborhoods, to change it very quickly. And that's what we have to start thinking about. That's what we teach. We call it citizen foresters.
Love it.
That go from infrastructure agencies, governments infantilizing us, saying people won't change, people can't do it, to with education.
Yes.
We are so powerful.
And I just have to interject, infantilizing us, and when you give up the power to something greater than yourself in your world, you are hopelessly helpless. There is nobody else. Like, there is no Superman. There's that book, Waiting for Superman. Like, there is no Superman, there's no Superwoman. We are the ones collectively who will take this action and watch the show, tweet it out, and plant a tree, right? What actions can we take? I mean, right?
You need to find out the right trees for your climate, but set your goals. Do I need shade? Yeah, maybe.
Right.
Do I want to attract bird sounds to tamp down the sound of the freeway that's near me? Do we have an excess of pollutants in our neighborhood, in the air, that either from the kind of particles that come out of diesel trucks that create lung cancer? You can plant trees that with leaves that are really fibrous, that actually are the filters that best take that out of the air.
highest fiber tree, the
Right.
most shade tree,
But it's every tree for us is an element of healing. I like to think of them as acupuncture needles. But it takes good thinking, and we are producing the tools for this. So you get the right tree in the right place, the right acupuncture needle placed in the right place. And these things are, though, our partners. You can't plant it and walk away. Tree People says it takes 5 years to plant a tree. First, think about it. Second, dream. Invite other people to dream with you, your family, your neighbors, schoolmates, your community.
right?
Share that dream. Then you've got the resources, the energy to make it happen. You can start small. Right trees can grow big, fast. Often, the smaller they are, the faster they grow. So you don't have to spend thousands of dollars for a really big tree if you can protect it. But that 5 years, so dreaming, planning, getting the right mix of trees for your home, your street, for the needs, for the toxins you might want to treat. If you want
it's
to
beautiful.
protect the river, the salmon downstream, the right trees with the right soil mix.
Right.
Begin to clean the water. You have to also allow the water that's falling and being thrown away, capture it.
Right.
You mentioned cisterns earlier with the schools. we have been working with local agencies, getting them to collaborate to manage LA as an ecosystem instead of a drain. And it's very hard for them
As
to
an
do that.
ecosystem instead of a drain.
Yeah, well,
That's phenomenal.
and that,
Listen, Governor Newsom.
well, but that's right there.
That's phenomenal.
Right there, you're at regeneration.
And when we're talking about regeneration
Right.
versus sustainability, it's not just on farmland, it's not just for our food things, it's about water. If we're thinking of water sustainably, it's reuse, reduce. We're talking about, no. Water is the potential for regenerating the ecosystem that's going to bring us more water. That's regenerative thinking. Like, it's going to enhance the ability for the soil to increase its biology. It's going to increase the amount of plant cover. It's going to increase the amount of aggregation of the soil. And it's going to increase our underground water reservoirs. So when we think about soil, if we think about it regeneratively versus sustainably, that's a shift where we're saying, oh, we're not just trying to slow down our loss. We're actually able to recreate a small water cycle here in Los Angeles.
Right, and that we never finished. Our sentence is about small water cycles. So when what recharges the clouds is either ocean surface or leaf surface, so forests and oceans. So what's happened when the first part of the water cycle, the big one, clouds come in from the ocean, dump their rain.
it down,
If they're hitting paved surfaces, LA's 2/3 paved, all the water runs off. And you don't have enough trees or soil, moist soil to evaporate, the water cycle gets broken. And so it doesn't move inland. This happened with the deforestation of many areas in Africa that have created perpetual drought because there's nothing to regenerate the clouds. In Melbourne, because they'd lost so many people, they prioritized it. They threw all the science they had at it. And Melbourne's very similar to Los Angeles, or Melbourne if you're not used to the Australian. It has had 20% tree canopy cover. Their science told them they needed to double it to 40% to save lives. And they
did it.
They've made a major commitment to it. They're still in the process, but they've taken right in the urban core, the hottest part of the city, they focused on first. And I can show you pictures of streets that people are walking under tunnels of trees, and it's saving lives. So we can be doing the same things, but the key is, in America today, a city tree has very little chance of survival unless a human has planted it and cares for it and protects it. When government agencies just do it willy-nilly, when the community isn't consulted, when they're not partnered with, they have no stake in it. And it's too hot. There's not enough water. Cities are very harsh climates for trees, except when people plant them and protect them and care for them. And that's the hope. It's not just hope. That's where our power is. Even without funding, we can join hands and do this and build wealth in the soil.
When you are hot, you're not thinking as much, right? When you have polluted air in our inner cities and in our very nice inner cities, by the way, right? Like indoor air quality. There's this TED Talk. I met the man, his father, when I was in Boston. There's a TED Talk about the three trees, the three plants they use: mother-in-law's tongue, areca palm, and money tree. His doctor said, "Don't go to work. It's killing you. You're in New Delhi. Game over, man. Move out." He's like, "Nope." He put in these trees at a large percentage in his office. Improve blood oxygen by 1%. Improve cognition, reduce eye strain. We're talking in New Delhi. We're talking inside air quality. Sometimes often more toxic than outside. Right.
Well,
we are one and the same.
And don't forget violence. So all of those issues you're talking about raise frustration, anger. You are less civil. And you are stressed. So
you remember when we're planning? I know you come to my garden events and no one's there but you, me, and like Councilman Sharif. Or then there's 4 or 5. But you remember when we're planning, when there'd be people that wouldn't plant with us, but they'd start to talk to us, and it would just be this little percolation of people sort of coming out, right? Because it's shade, because you have trees, because it's community, right? So I think that, I don't know if you could speak to that or what you think, but
So it's twofold, right? So there's a challenge with community engagement when it comes to environmental issues, right? Because depending on the environment you're doing the work in, people will hold their chronic illnesses at a higher level than planting a tree or creating a community garden, right? So a person may hold them not having employment on a higher scale of planting a tree, not realizing that some of the issues that they are dealing with, suffering from, is closely and highly related to the environment that they're in.
Yeah,
right?
I think of any disenfranchised group of people, right? Whether it was when the Irish came, they were poor and whatever, right? You pick any culture and any ethnicity, right? Who are we to tell the people that are cutting down the rainforest, stop, it's not going to be a carbon sink anymore, you're polluting, we're going to be over 350, 400 parts per million, but they're putting food on their table. They're like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're higher in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm at food and shelter, right? So if we're going to come into these communities, or if we're going to try to bond with them, we need to take a step back and say, hey, we love you, who are you, and what can we do to help you?
Right.
And here's what we have found.
Got to meet them where they are.
Right.
Well, and you know, the need for money for a job is huge.
Oh, of course.
And when
crucial.
and this work, where you know, if all you're doing is offering people trees as decorations, that's
Right.
like let them eat cake. You'll feel better because it looks good. No,
Right.
when you understand that Los Angeles throws away LA City throws away nearly all the water that falls here. It spends nearly $1 billion a year to import and distribute water. But the rain that does fall represents half the water we need, right? So that's about
Okay.
$500 million
All right.
worth of water.
Yeah, that's
so
a lot of
we
money.
know that we are running out.
Yeah.
All our traditional supplies are drying up. So how are we going to replace it? Are we going to do the traditional? There's no more new sources to bring to LA, but the rainwater that's here can be captured. Our yards, our schoolyards can be captured to biomimic the forest watershed, but also adding cisterns. And by the way, you were talking about the guy who's using AI to communicate with his little digester.
Yes, amazing. BioHightech,
So
amazing company.
we've just done a pilot project with our agencies, the Flood Control Agency, the Water Supply Agency, the Stormwater Pollution and Sanitation Agency have brought together to do this integration, but they've invested in a vision we had of being able to make cisterns smart. We've worked with our infrastructure agencies and brought them together to do an integrated ecosystem-based plan. And they designed together, we've helped facilitate them designing a hybrid system that does it all, just like nature did.
Right.
And it includes retrofitting yards, putting in trees, taking out landscape that's wasteful, and having water capturing, water cleaning landscape and mulch gardens.
Right.
But also biomimicking the way that tree captures water and cleans it. We don't have enough space for trees everywhere for capturing it all. But with technology, a biomimic tree water capturer is a cistern, is a tank.
Right. It is.
And just as trees communicate and send their nutrients around, adding artificial intelligence to a tank, sensors that are connected to all the agencies so they can see and monitor the water, and the homeowner or the resident can see it on their phone and choose whether the water is going to go to their garden, to a bioswale for treatment, for a rain garden for recharge, or send it to the recycling plant. But the agencies can all see it too.
Right.
And by agreement, control whether it's going to be used for flood control and all that. But back to the bottom line of dollars. We can invest now in people, human energy, to be paying for people to treat the land right, their yards, their streets, their schoolyards, their parks, and employing a lot of people with real green jobs instead of paying for carbon-based fuels, gasoline, oil, to pump the water into Los Angeles, which, by the way, pumping water into Los Angeles is the single largest use of electricity in the state of California.
And
The state of California is the sixth largest economy in the world. The single largest use of electricity in this state is to pump water into Los Angeles
But we're losing
that we
50%
don't
of our
need
water.
to be bringing in here. So we all have to rebuild.
money to give to people to do it.
But that's the point. Our opportunity right
Yeah.
now today is every one of our cities needs its infrastructure upgraded to respond to the fact that our climate has already changed and we're at risk. So all of us as citizens need to weigh in to say we want that money to be spent on human-powered and recycle our dollars in our community because that builds cash wealth that we need as well.
Right.
And that helps.
right.
Humans tend the soil, monitor the soil, put in the microbes that are needed for a pollutant that might have leaked out of a truck on your street.
Right.
All that's
Which I
within
see
reach today.
is tied into which one of the talks I try to have as often as possible is
Yeah.
creating this green collar industry.
Yeah.
Because
Green collar.
you have no idea how many college students that I engage with who are going to school or to become engineers in renewable energy, to become horticulturalists and urban agriculturalists, and they come out of school.
And there's nothing there.
Nothing.
And that's
Well, I
why
think-
I'm
Nothing
talking
is
about this.
And so we are creating the framework we're creating the soil for these kids to thrive within.
Well, I think there's
and, you know,
it's looking at the United States and some of our biggest shifts in terms of creating the middle class, all these different things that happened throughout our history, was when there was a major shift in leadership of saying, look, pointing out what Andy's saying, and like that's where all of us need to help push up this talking point and get it so it's in the minds of people like our potential new governor Gavin Newsom and being like, look, we need to have some drastic changes in our government sense to say, look, there is this much money being spent for the stupidest thing in the world. We could put it over here and we could have a major shift, not just in social consciousness of people and not just in the pockets, dollars in their pockets, but actual long-term regenerating effects.
I mean, I have so much to say, and I thank you so much because you are such a breath of knowledge. I just want to listen and listen. So, and of course talk, but natural capital, right? How much does it cost for us to walk around and pollinate? Right? Jamie Cloud talks about this. We have a capitalist society. Yeah, let's be capitalists. Good. Let's go hardcore capitalists. Let's invest.
We actually have a very socialist society, which is
right.
like
But you know the point I'm making, right? Like we have the point, like we are capitalists, right? We want to make money. So let's assign capital, like you were talking about, towards natural resources, towards carbon sequestration, towards pollination, towards the value of the water. What was it? So we're spending $1 billion to bring it in. Yet, so all that water that hits, that's running into the ocean, that's worth $500 million.
Right.
So let's employ people to plant trees.
And
right?
costs upwards of $500 million to throw it away.
Right.
That speaks to our social system as well.
Yes.
We're so radical when it comes to getting the latest iPhone or getting a new car or going from trying to figure out how do you get from one home to another home. But when it comes to changing our social, political, environmental systems, we're very stagnant.
Well, it's because we believe that we don't count. And when you start participating with your neighbors, feeding yourselves, taking care of each other, you begin to understand how much power you have.
And
that's what humans, as humans, we need to know that we have power, but it's not force. It's to understand that our ideas, our loves, our thoughts can manifest. That's all the power that actually feeds us.
And this is the beautiful, you know what this is? This is the beginning of the beginning. I really think that. And I want to continue the conversation with you all. I want anybody out there that wants to join forces, make a comment if we decide to post this on YouTube, or if you see it, share it, tweet it, whatever. You believe in this message, take action. I want to sum it up here. This is such a great unraveling and opening and raising the awareness of so many things. Thank you all for coming. I want to sort of end with this, and then we'll let you really sort of give us your last golden nugget or beautiful fruit. Cradle to cradle, right? We're talking about wasting money shipping in water, wasting money taking out food, wasting money taking out garbage. William McDonough, Cradle to Cradle, he's done it. This is not ideology. This is actuality. Ford Motor Company, Nike have saved millions of dollars on their operating costs at their headquarters because they listen to Cradle to Cradle. At the International Build Conference in Boston, he was talking about the way we think about things like you're talking about, sustainability. It's sort of lame. What are we doing? Like carbon positive, not carbon neutral, carbon negative. Let's think about thriving and truly loving and bring in the poetry, bring in that beautiful stuff. So let's take action. Let's make this happen. And thank you. So just go around. I mean, I think Cradle to Cradle is a beautiful segue with what you do. I mean, technical nutrients and realizing that there is no way. So
I mean, absolutely. I think that everything that people are saying here is kind of different words for the same thing. Is that we do have solutions for so many of the problems that we have. We can be much more efficient with our resources. We can feed back to source, like you were saying before, is we can actually be generating things, get out of the ideology that everything is about destruction. We can actually be reutilizing the rain as it flows, or all of these different things much more intelligently, and actually creating resources and getting out of the ideology of scarcity and getting back into the thought and biomimicry of regenerating, of making this better than it's ever been.
And saving your, reducing your corporate liability for your
Right.
taxes. I
And
mean,
that's just
come
one-
on,
that's
man,
just
it's a
one-
win-win.
Exactly, that's like
pop
one
the
aspect of it.
champagne and write it off. I mean, right? This is great.
Absolutely, yeah. It's about utilizing, if it is like corporate assets and technology. I mean, yeah, cradle to cradle. Like it does a great job within a corporation, and then it can go to a school and do another great job over there. The company gets a tax write-off, and then also people get a laptop that can utilize it in a new way and can educate the next generation. I mean, that's utilizing resources intelligently, and we can do that in so many different ways.
Right. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, Jordan.
So definitely, my motto is think global, act local, that's local. I mean, like I said earlier, I may not have single-handedly be able to solve the issue around world hunger, but as a master gardener, I know how to, turn a vacant lot into a community garden. I know how to do a backyard garden. I know how to do a front yard garden. So I utilize what skill sets I have to empower others to want to join the movement that I've launched in Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, and run for mayor. I'm not joking. Just watch out. Tobias Fox, Newark SAS. Check it out.
I would encourage everyone to use YouTube and Google and start to get into the magnificent projects that are happening worldwide and starting to see where there's amazing examples in India and Ethiopia, China, wherever it might be, in the United States, where we're having, when we talk about social justice, when we talk about people struggling, oftentimes people are struggling because their area where they're working on is depleted or is lacking, and they don't necessarily have the funds. So in the case, the model we have right now is people who dominate and people who have power and money are able to get what they want no matter what, no matter where. But people who are in diminished, struggling places are getting hit harder and harder as we have bigger storms, bigger droughts, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
What we're talking about is whether it's India, a place where 90% of the population fled to the city because the countryside was completely degraded, and then they came in and did new water restoration projects to look at ecosystem function and everything, and then now everyone's coming back to that city because they have water flowing that never was flowing there before. These are things that are happening in real life. Farmers in the United States are saying, I'm up to my eyeballs in debt every year. I'm going $500,000 in debt just to get $20,000 maybe in profits, even though I don't pay myself. Going from, I'm reducing all my input costs 90% in 3 years, to actually regenerating my land, and now I'm a sovereign farmer. I'm free.
Independent.
I'm independent. I have my freedom because I regenerated my area that I'm working on. Now I'm working with my community, and we're looking at creating new small water cycles so we actually get rain in this area.
Yeah.
And so this constant idea of saying, wait, we can regenerate source. We don't have to be victim to the ideology that extraction and competition are the only thing there.
Right.
There is a real thing called we can create abundance. It's real now. We know that. There's enough examples around the world that can happen. We can work with nature to regenerate the world. Soil is the common ground issue that brings water agencies, government agencies, everyone together. We can say we build back the soil via the plant. The plant and the soil are one. There's no separation.
Right. Yeah.
We can have regeneration occur. It's real. It's not a joke. It can happen hyperlocal in your backyard. It can happen on large scale farms.
Right.
I love it. Ladies and gents, kiss the ground. I'm kissing the ground today. Buy this book. Thank you for the work you do. And when is the documentary
It's
led
going
by
to-
DiCaprio and you coming out?
It's going to festivals right now, and it should be out in late spring.
Kiss the ground. Take action. And I don't even know, Andy. I feel like I just want to follow you home and talk to you more. But I mean, I don't know if you can sum it up in a soundbite. I won't follow you.
Two quick points. Every one of us makes a difference. One of the things that pisses me off the most is when someone says, you prove that one person can make a difference. And I go,
right.
when you say that, you're saying that you don't make a difference. And every step we take, every word we speak, every penny we spend makes a difference. The question is it on the negative side, the consuming side, or is it on the regenerating side? It's our choice.
Your
And
consumption can be regenerative.
it totally,
Right.
if it's
but
conscious.
if you're thinking of it, yes.
So where I want to
love
leave
it.
you is the
Love it.
simple act
Right.
of planting a tree. It's a book for free online at treepeople.org.
The simple act.
Of planting a tree.
planting a tree.
And that teaches you how to raise money, how to connect with your neighbors, how to break through those barriers that you're talking about, how to get government permits to plant, sometimes how to get the power lines out of the way.
Right.
It's all there in that book. Take your dream, bring it across the bridge to reality, and you'll know damn straight that you make a difference. And no one can take that away from you.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. Next time we have, some also equally amazing guests, ranging from Stephen Ritz, the Power of the Plant, and Amanda Neshwat, an up-and-coming national change maker, also from the East Coast, New Jersey, who easily brings in over $250,000 a year just through grants, and is making Secaucus, New Jersey, one of the green hotbeds or cool beds, if you were, of the East Coast. And I just want to reiterate our mission. Our mission is to thrive with nature. Not for us to tell you how, for us to learn how together, right? Intrinsically, we are all connected, just like the root. So there is no us, there is no you. It's all one, right? And we're going to plant 10,000 trees, and we're going to plant 1,000 of them, and then we're going to do our best to make sure they live and take the expertise of true geniuses that have just spewed love into the world, like Andy, to make sure they live and they're the proper trees. And 50% of all ad revenue from Green Revolution will go towards this. And when we get that goal, we're going to outfit schools with solar or geothermal or wind for free, or something even more beautiful. Now, what I'm about to say is I think that you, in addition to being green and sustainable, I think you really need to believe in yourself. And it's a little bit of inspiration mixed with the green message, but I believe that our culture fetishizes celebrity. But it also is a beautiful thing to control eyeballs and to influence eyeballs. All of us have this little cell phone, and we can take it out, and it's now this equalizer. And I truly believe that the people I'm about to mention can help bring us to the next level. And I have been calling, emailing, and I will never stop with the most polite persistence to get these people on this show. And I'm mentioning these names because I believe that they can bring it to the next level with us. I believe that they can help spread the mission, just like you are connecting with some amazing people that are well known. And quite honestly, I know we can make it happen. So, benefits, compost, I'm going to, okay, so Stephen Ritz is coming. Thank you, it's confirmed. I can't wait to get Will Allen. I met you in Newark thanks to this man right here. He was on our plot. Remember that? Will Allen, Growing Power. Please come on our show. National change agent. Al Gore. I know it's a big thing, but man, you're doing amazing work. Thank you, President, or should have been President Al Gore. Ron Finley. I'm in talks with your beautiful secretary, very loving woman. Often Senator Cory Booker. I know I'm this close to you. I know once you watch this, you'll come on. Governor Edmund Brown, future Governor Lieutenant Gavin Newsom. You guys are bright lights that need to be here and need to inspire people to take action. Need to surround the government with the educators, with the change makers, so we all raise our awareness. You don't know what to do unless you don't know what to do. You don't know what you don't know, so let's talk about it. I need to learn a lot too. Governor Schwarzenegger, I'm going to meet you at the Venice Beach Gym. The book Abundance. Yeah, I know you're here all the time, Peter DeMantis, Stephen Kotler. These are people who are my idols, my heroes, who are people who are taking positive action. Ed Begley Jr., Seal, William McDonough, and just anybody and everybody that wants to take action. So thank you for tuning in. Let's all make this what it can be, a beautiful, abundant world. So thanks for your time, and tune in next time.